All right, who we got here today?
Hey guys, it's Matt Hagan here. I drive a funny car for Tony Stewart Racing. They're coming up on, 18, 19 years of driving a race car out here in the sport. So, out here hanging out with Preston today. Got to show him the farm a little bit, and he's got a few questions for me.
Yeah. So give us a little bit about just kind of how you got into racing and how you became Matt Hagan.
Yeah, never really set out to really go racing. I had a family friend that worked at one of my dad's dealership that had a drag car, and he was always kind of talking about it, when I'd be around and stuff. And he's like, "You got to come to a drag race with me." And I didn't even know really what a drag race was. I was like 13 years old, and he just kind of one of my dad's buddies, and just having one of them deals where he's like, "Come on, let's go." So he scooped me up on a Saturday. And this guy's got a '69 Dart. I actually own the car now. It's actually in my man cave. And it was one of those cool cars, man. It was like, it ran in a gear jammer class. So like you pull second gear and it's on its back bumper, man, and sparks are going everywhere. And finally the guy put wheelie bars on it and stuff. But it was just a cool car, right? And so I was like, oh my gosh, man, this thing's doing a wheel stand and he's jamming gears, and he let me, wipe it down and, it kind of like dial it in and put air in the tires and stuff. And I'm 13 years old and I'm thinking like, this is cool, So, I didn't have a race car, obviously, because I'm 13, but I had a four-wheeler. And they had this little racetrack called Elk Creek Dragway. It's a small little hole in the wall kind of drag strip, man. And going back and looking at it now, it's kind of, I'm like, oh my gosh, I ran down this thing. It's so narrow, with guardrails and everything else. But, you cut your teeth, in different places. But I had a four-wheeler. And on Friday nights, they would let you come out there and run four wheelers, test and tune, all that kind of stuff. And so I brought my quad out there, and beginner's luck or what, I don't know. I went to the final and I didn't win the race, but I won $130. And like at 13, I was like, oh man, damn, I can win some money doing this, So yeah, I just started, like bracket racing my four wheeler, and kind of like, I did that for a little bit until I turned like, 15, 16. And then my dad owns a car lot, so he has a lot of used cars. So I would go out there and scope out all the used cars on the lot. And unbeknownst to him, I would steal the cars off the lot and I'd run them up to the drag strip. Well, transmissions and tires and everything else later, he kind of got wind of it. He's like, what is going on with all these used cars that are coming back that are just kind of like, beat up, And so, I kind of had to confess that I've been, grabbing the keys off the lot and, running these cars up there. And so he's like, no, we can't do that. So he's like, let's see what we can do to get you a race car, And I was like, well, that sounds great to me, So 16 years old, one of the guys that worked at the dealership, named Butch Dowdy, he had an old Chevy 2 Nova, and it was a 406. It was bored 30 over with a slapstick in it. And I was like, man, what do you want for that thing? So I saved up, and Dad helped out a little bit too, and it was on an open trailer deal, and just kind of like he brought it to the house, and I'm running up and down our driveway. Our driveway was like a quarter mile long, but it was straight up and down, I running up and down the driveway. Had the neighbors call the cops on me for being so loud because it ain't got, it just had headers on it, so anyway, they show up and they're like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm just trying to figure out whether I'm gonna buy this car or not, and so I ended up buying the car and racing it like in a foot brake category over at Elk Creek. And then next thing you know, I wanted to go faster, and we got into this stuff called like Super Pro and everything else. And they had these races that were called quick eights, and it was the quickest eight to show up. It don't matter what you got. It don't matter how fast you go. You just had to be the quickest eight cars on the at the racetrack. And so I was like, man, we're going to do something. We're going to get a car to do these quick eights. So I found this old Trans Am that was it looked like I cut my kid's swing set up, right? Like it was pieced together. The welds were shit on them. Like it was bad, right? Like, and so, but it had like a 632 Eagle motor in it. It had two systems of nitrous, and this guy, he was just kind of like putting up with it. But like I knew I was going to have some learning to do with the nitrous and different things. A lot of times those tracks weren't prepped that great, that kind of stuff. And they're super narrow. So a lot of times the cars will be out of shape, and just learning to drive, cutting your teeth on a real narrow track and that kind of stuff. So love doing that. And, so started winning some of that, and I moved in this category called Big Dog, and it's a street category. It's got a groove in the tire, and it's down there at Piedmont Dragway. And man, there's that place is packed full of people betting on the race. And I mean, I even watched a guy get stabbed one night. It was tough, dude. I was like, oh man, we're in the wrong place, you know. But the racing was good there, man. And they gave you this big concrete bulldog as a trophy, you know, and started running some of that, man. And I finally saved up and got like a Jerry Bickle car, man. It was like a pro stock car. And then like, you know, we were doing that a little bit locally, and there was this guy by the name of Ronnie, and he was a Superman, and the other guy was like the Joker. And then like, I think I called my car Big Nasty or the Predator or something like that. I don't know. But we all had like themes for our car, you know, it was cool. And then so, you know, started winning some of those, man. You go up there and they'd be giving you like 50 grand in cash, man, you know, but like, you knew, like everybody knew you won, and everybody knew your motorhome, and they know you leaving out of there with 50 G in your pocket, you know what I mean? So you always kind of like try to slide out of there without nobody knowing, so you didn't get run off the road and somebody rob you and stuff like that. And it's just, you know, like that old school racing, I kind of miss it, because we were doing some of that with Big Dog, and then I started running up and down the East Coast. You know, one place is called Kinston Dragway, man, and we would we had like the shutdown was so, we had no business being there either. The shutdown was so short that we would shut down in a cornfield. Like you'd hit the brakes and the chutes as hard as you could, and then you would slide out in the cornfield with this $150,000 car, and you're going like, what am I doing? But then you win 50 G that night, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm glad I came here, you know? We sold some race fuel there, and so there was a guy that basically, well, he sells race fuel back in the day, man, you know, and so I called him up. I said, hey, we got a racetrack, you know, why don't we sell your race fuel? You sponsor the race car a little bit. And he was already out here sponsoring fuel cars and different things. And so he was like, sure, here you go, kid. So he gave me 600 G to run a pro mod car. And I was like, wow, that's more than I even asked for, you know, but the guy was handing out money left and right, and right place, right time. I don't know, you know. And so, so we went out there and started running Pro Mod AMS series. I was actually the AMS Rookie of the Year in Pro Mod. Never really won any races or anything like that, but got close, you know, did well. And I was running AMS series in Pro Mod, you know, and you know, and like I said, getting back to like some of these places you're not supposed to be, you know, like we would race at like different places, and some guys be betting on stuff. And I rolled a car one time. I smacked the wall of this guardrail, and I thought I was going to go over, but I barrel rolled it like 6 times, and you know, like people ran out on the racetrack and they were pulling parts off of my car. And then like I'd have a line the length of a football field of people bringing your car parts back for you to sign it. And like, I'm like, this is crazy, man. And then like, you would also have guys that be betting on it, and like, they'd come up and be like, hey, motherfucker, like, what are you going to do? I just lost 10 G. He's like, how you going to make it right with me? And I'm like, well, I just lost the race, man. So leave me alone too. You know what I mean? I had a bad night too, you know? So, you know, you run into all walks of life, man. And, you know, different things. But like, he was like, look, I got he was like, I own the NHRA No Gas series. And he's like, I need more funny cars. And I was like, I don't know if I want to go that fast, man. He's like, what do you mean? Everybody wants to be in a funny car. I was like, well, I don't know. This pro mod gig here pretty good. You know, we're doing all right, and running up and down the East Coast, running some outlaw races and the AMS series on NHRA. And, you know, I'm like, I'm still pretty young. I'm like 19, you know what I mean? So I'm still kind of cutting my teeth. And he was just like, well, you either going to take $3 million of my money or you're not. And I was like, well, I'm going to take $3 million of your dollars. You know what I mean? And we're going to figure it out, you know? So, you know, right place, right time, I don't know. So he was just kind of like, okay, well, I'll get you to check out, you know. And he's like, but I want you to kind of come in and look at my facility and be a part of this and everything, you know. And I flew into Michigan, man. And this guy, for what he was doing, he was sponsoring like 2 fuel cars and, I don't know, 5 or 6 pro mod cars. And I mean, I'm talking about a guy throwing out millions and millions and millions of dollars. And you look at, you rolling in, this place ain't no bigger than my barn. I'm like, something don't add up, right? You know, I don't know what it is, but it's just, you know, you get that feel to it. Well, he's like, you know, I want you to drive a fuel car. And I was like, man, I don't know, that's fast. You know, 300 mile an hour, that's fast, you know? So I was like, I'll try it, you know, 19. And I start the first time I ever like decided I was going to do it. I flew in and I tried to test drive Del Creasy's car, and he doesn't have a clutch stop on the bottom. So like you can go over center. So like we're sitting there eating pizza the night before, and these guys were telling me about all the stories of how they've been on fire and wrecked this and blowed this up and, you know, shredded this body. And And so the first time I ever got in a fuel car, I looked like a state pup marshmallow, man. If I could have put 2 fire suits on, I'd have put 2 fire suits on. Like I always had so much gear on. And the only reason I even hit the gas was because my dad was there. He flew in to watch me do it, right? And I'd done committed to it, and I was like, I'm going to get my license, cause you got to have like 6 runs to get your license. Well, I'd already licensed in an alcohol funding car at Frank Holly's. So I only had to have 3 runs to get my deal. Well, I was breathing so hard, man. I fogged up my visor, and they were coming over the radio like, go. And I was like, I can't see. I was like, I can't see to go. I was like huffing and puffing, and I finally like wiped my visor clean, and I let the clutch out, and then I pulled in and I hit the pedal, and I went out there like 300 feet, and the thing quit. And I was like, man. But what had happened was that thing, I'd been over center on the stop, so it nuked the clutch out of it. So that was like one and done run. You know what I mean? My pops was like, you like it? I was like, yeah, I think I can do it. So then we go and buy Wilkerson's car. He had a turnkey chassis deal for sale. And it was funny because I just needed like 2 more real runs to really kind of get my license, to be able to do this. And we're on a budget, it's 5G a run. And it's not even 5G a run. He'd already thrown the runs in because I was going to buy the car turnkey, for like 100G. And so anyway, he gets out through there, and I'm like, I gotta get it to the end, man. It's like in my mind, I got 2 runs to make this happen. He's thrown them in, the whole car is ready to go. And so I get it down there pretty close to the end. I think I click it off. Back then we were quarter mile racing. I click it off like 1,000 feet, and it looked like a snake, man, because I was behind the race car because I had not gone that fast. And all I know, I got down to the end. The safety guys goes like, "Are you good? You on fire?" I was like, "You tell me. I don't know how I got here." You know what I mean? And so it was kind of one of them crazy deals where I was like, man, my mind has got some catching up to do. And I get back, and I thought like Timmy was going to be proud of me for getting it down there, and he's like, "That's the dumbest driving job I've ever seen in my life." And so my next time, obviously focus, and it just took runs and runs to do that, but I also, got my license, and then, I kind of like cut my teeth in the fuel car a little bit because we won more races than anybody in IHRA, but I also was on fire more than anybody. So I lost the championship because of oil down and fire penalties. So like when people are like, oh man, like, everybody that followed my career in IHRA, they're like, dude, you earned your stripes early on because you were on fire every other lap. You know what I mean? I fired one crew chief and hired another guy, and he was setting me on fire too. And it was just kind of one of those deals where like Paul Smith, so I tried to hire Paul Smith, and he's like a legendary old guy tuner. You know what I mean? And he does pretty good. But he was tuning Spencer Massey's car, and he's like, oh, I ain't got time. So I hired his son, and his son was like, okay, yeah, I'll tune the car. And so it was funny because like we won more races, but we lost the championship because he was on fire so much. And then at the end of the season, Paul sends me a bill for 10G for his tune-up. I was like, that's not what we talked about. I was like, dude, that's sleazy. That's greasy, man. And so I ended up meeting him halfway. I paid him $5,000 for him to go away and quit calling me. You know what I mean? But it was just one of those deals where we got through the IHRA season, we were like, well, let's go to a couple more races. So I crossed over to NHRA, and, I outqualified Forrest, Selzy, and Tommy Johnson Jr. And, at the time, Don Schumacher come through my pit, and he was kind of like, who are you? And I was like, well, I'm just Matt Hagan, I'm just IHRA racing and trying to, cross over a little bit, cut my teeth in NHRA. Obviously, we don't have funding to do that. And he's like, well, Selzy's retiring. He's like, I need a new wheelman. And he's like, can you bring any money to the table? And I was like, well, I got the sponsor. So I tried to get a hold of him and can't get a hold of him. Well, come to find out, had embezzled a bunch of money from the government and was giving it away. So they handed him down like 15 years of prison time. It is a crazy story, but it's just one of those things where how wild, man, and so then by crossing over to NHRA, Don was like, let's do this. And I was like, is this real? Like, this is my first NHRA race, really. Like, I might have been at Reading one more time, but like, so Don Schumacher straight through my pit. He's like, Selzy's out, you're in. And so I fly into Richmond and ink a 3-year deal with Don. And then the next thing you know, I had the FBI call me, and they're like, look, you're not in trouble. We're just trying to run down where this money went. You know what I mean? And so one of them things where I'm like, well, we done burned it out of race car pipe. You know what I mean? Like, it's gone, so I hope you don't want it back. And they were like, no, we're just trying to track it all down. So kind of a wild, crazy start to my career, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? I think some other people were in the same boat. He was sponsoring some other folks, and hell, he got out of prison, and I sent him t-shirts. You know what I mean? We still talk on Instagram, and he got me my start, man. So not knocking the guy. It's just one of those things that's just my story. You know what I mean? That's just the way it happened. And so it's just like when people ask me my story, this is probably the first time I've ever put it on camera like that. But that's my story of how I got started with this deal. So then, yeah, I'm thinking, well, my career's over. Well, as soon as it started, because like there's no more funding. The guy that started me off, he's going to prison, and like this is going to be a bad deal. It's going to look bad. And at the end of the day, Schumacher didn't care about that. He just needed another wheelman. And unfortunately, I signed the deal in '08. Well, the economy went south. We had a recession, and the first thing that gets cut is sponsorship and funding. I was supposed to drive the Mopar Oakley car, and then they were like, Dodge is going bankrupt, and all this other stuff. And my dad's floor planning with all his cars was financed through Dodge, and there's like things are grim, man. Racing a race car is the last thing on your deal. But what was really cool was I had a lot of respect for Don Schumacher, because he's like, look, kid, I signed a deal with you. I'm going to make this happen, whether the sponsors are there or not. He said, I'll dip into my own pockets. He's like, I believe in you as a driver, and I want you to drive my race car. My pops came up with some money to help as well, and they got me out there my first year. So first year, we're out here, we're digging for sponsors, man, trying to like shake the bush. Like, who can we get to help get some of my pops' money back, get some of Don's money back? So we run across this guy, and he just come out of like Formula One. So we're like, oh, the guy's in Formula One, he's got deep pockets, So you don't really do your research as much. You're just like, okay, man, sign up. Ink's a 3-year deal. We wrapped the car. We got all this hero cards done. The car's painted brake safe. He's got this company called Brake Safe, which is like the brake lights blink like 3 times on the back of the third brake light up top. But I'm sure you've still seen some of those out, some of the like aftermarket stuff. But good concept, good little business, deal. So we're like, cool, let's sign up, let's go. So that being said, everything's inked up, trailers, inked up, cars painted, all this stuff. Second race in, this dude's home races Phoenix, bounces a check after that. And we're like, oh man, we just went through this deal. We're like, man, what do we do? So we rip all the paint and the wraps and all this stuff off, and we go back to Sheeler Motor Mile for a while, So we're running the Sheeler car, which is my dad's business. And honestly, without my pops, I wouldn't be. I've seen so many people come and go, and, I still pinch myself, to this day. I'm going like, we've had so many deals try to fall through, and it's like, without him, and everybody's like, oh, your daddy's money, whatever, man. But it really is, man. And it really has been that he's sacrificed so much to keep me out here and keep my dreams alive. And now, the last 15 years of my life, we've done it all through sponsorship and not had to do a lot of that, but without him in my life and without Don doing what he did, I would have been come and gone, man, a flash in the pan, So it really does take good people that care about you and believe in your dreams and get you there, and it's just, like I said, I pinch myself a lot of times, because I'm like, I'm still out here doing this, man, and we're still signing multi-year deals, and we're still out here getting it done, and we got great relationships with sponsors, and, so I think a lot of it's right place, right time, but then we got through a lot of bullshit along the way, you know what I mean? So, but it makes you appreciate it when you do get it right and you do out here and you have great sponsors and it all works out. Some things I think that as you get in a fuel car and you're going 300 miles an hour, and I think that if you don't think it's going to happen, then you're foolish to be in there, man. Like if it's something that like, man, that ain't going to happen to me, you got no business being in it, because it's going to happen to you. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of time. You look at John Force, that guy's been on fire and upside down, and from here to Australia, I think is the saying that they say all the time. And it's just, you're rolling the dice, man. You know what I mean? Like you're playing Russian roulette with a 300 mile an hour fuel car, and it's going to blow up. It's going to catch on fire. You're going to tag stuff. You're going to hit stuff. You're going to have some bad boomers, man, along the way, and it's just, and I think that you have to respect that, and you have to take that in as kind of like, I got the best gear I got around me. I got the best guys I got around me. I got everything that I can do in my power to make myself as safe as I can, but knowing that I got to get myself out of some of those situations. And I think for me, my first fire was one of my worst fires, and it really set me up to be able to kind of go into my career, figuring out what to do and how to handle those situations. And that first fire for me, man, like it was my own fault, so I just started driving a fuel car, and we were in Texas, and I hadn't pulled the pumps on all the way. So you have to, the pumps are trimmed on a burnout, and you have to pull pumps on to basically get fuel pump to get all the fuel going to the car. So I'd still had it at half pump, which is lean. So we went out through there and leaned the whole motor out, and it put all 8 rods out. Massive fire. I couldn't see where I was at. You know, I was freaking out. The carbon was burning real bad. I was taking in a lot of smoke. My legs were starting to blister up. So the thing about the fire suits is that you don't burn through them, man, but the heat transfers through them. That's why you want so many layers. So anything that's sweat on your body, it becomes like a steam burn. So it starts blistering your body. And I could, you know, I just feel my legs burning, and I was taking in all this smoke, and it truly crossed my mind. I'm like, I'm going to die. Like I've never had that in my life to where I'm like, oh man, like this is it for me. You know what I mean? In that situation, I was like, I'm probably not going to get out of this one. It's pretty nasty fire. Couldn't see where I was at. The car was bouncing off the side of the deal. And it's probably still running 150 miles an hour. I was trying to jump out of the car, and I hadn't even unbuckled myself. That's how much I was freaking out. And so it was so hot. You realize why people jump out of skyscrapers that are on fire. You're going like, why would you do that? That you're jumping to your death. But that's that mentality of I want out. And I don't care what's going on. I want out. And so I went through that, man, you know, but you got to learn to, you know, kind of like hold your breath, figure out where you're at, you know, even if you can't see with the smoke and fire, you know, try to keep that thing up against the wall, shave some speed down, you know, burn the parachutes off of it. It pretty much melted the car to the ground there, you know, at that race. And it just was such a super nasty fire that it really helped me mentally, you know, prepare for everything else that's ever came at me in my career. And, you know, I've been at this deal for almost 20 years in a fuel car, and I've had a lot of explosions, a lot of boomers, a lot of fires, a lot of energy that comes back on you. And, you know, it's just, no one can tell you what that's like until you go through that. So I think that's one thing that I think that if you crawl into one of these cars, or you have any, you know, you think you want to be in one, be ready for it to be nasty, and it's going to be, you know, but like, that's also what makes it exciting. You know, it's kind of like why a guy gets on a bull, right? Like, you don't know how it's going to come out the gate. Same with the funny car. Every time you stand on the pedal, you don't know how that thing's going to wash and what you got to do. And, you know, a lot of times you see them go down through there, and it looks easy, but man, you're working your ass off in there to keep it straight, you know, and it's just, you never know what you're going to get, but that's also what makes your heart beat, right? Like, that's why people skydive, and, you know, and I've done everything from skydiving to driving monster trucks to driving drag boats to circle track cars to dirt track cars, you name it. I've been blessed to be able to mess with it, you know, and there's nothing that replaces the adrenaline and the feel and the pure excitement that you get when you stand on the pedal of a fuel car.
Have there ever been an incident to where you went down the track and the car couldn't stop?
Yeah, I mean, this Charlotte a couple years ago, we had, you know, safety things implementation is great, right? Like, we're always, you know, evolving with safety, but sometimes you can dummy it up too much, man, and you can make it too safe to where your driver gets lazy, or you don't do what you're supposed to do as a driver. And it cost me. I mean, the only time I've ever really been in the sand pit was because of a safety issue. And we had my crew chiefs, we put this wheel counter on the car, and it revolution of how many times the wheel counts, and then it puts the parachutes out for you, you know. So it's like, well, it's always going to go off because it's got a wheel counter, and you know, they wanted me to drive into the chutes, so the chutes, because the air behind the funny car gets real disturbed. Actually, funny story about that, and I'll get back into this one, was, you know, I had a guy that basically was a huge fan of mine, and passed away, and his family comes to me, and they're like, we want you to spread his ashes on the racetrack at 300 miles an hour. I'm like, absolutely, no problem. I'll be glad to help, you know. And so I sprinkle his ashes on in the parachutes and go out through there at 300 miles an hour. Poof. All of a sudden I got dead dude all over me. And I'm like, what? How did this happen? I'm at 300. This guy's supposed to be behind me, right? And no, he's all up in me. So I got gritty bones and dust and stuff everywhere. And I'm like, no way at 300. That's not possible, right? But the way the air comes over the car and pushes back underneath, and there was dead dude everywhere, man. And like, I was picking dead dude out of my head sock and everything else. But like, you know, it was just like, no good deed goes unpunished. I'll promise you that. So, you know, back to like the car, and why they wanted me to drive into the parachutes was because of the turbulence behind it like that. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. But it's kind of like you're dumbing these things down to where it's like, why do I get paid a premium to get in the car? You know, you're making this safe, and this fuel shut off this, and that's fine. And don't get me wrong, I understand why we do that with a lot of people. But at the end of the day, I've always drove the car where I shut it down manually. I put the parachutes out. And so they wanted to change this last year, I think it was, where I'm driving in the chutes and you're doing this, and that's fine. But you know, the chutes are already pulled, so you're not reaching over there and hitting nothing, and you become lazy. I mean, it's just part of it. So the parachute bimbo broke on the deal. I was like, oh man, so it's broke. And so I'm just grabbing brake and holding on. Well, the brakes fade real fast at 300 miles an hour, and you only got so much of that. They're pulling and brake goes away. So now I'm just along for a ride. And you're going like, wow, this safety shit didn't really work out too good. You know what I mean? So then I hit the sand trap, and it's super smooth. You think you'd hit it hard, but it's like smooth going in, and the net catches you, and it's a lot of give. And I was like, man, bad, And then I reach over and I was like, wonder if this parachute thing's still working. And I hit it and they fucking pop out. And I'm like, God damn it. You know what I mean? So it's enough to piss you off. So then after that, I was just like, I went to my crew chief. I was like, we ain't doing this shit no more. I was like, I'm pulling the parachutes. I'm shutting the car down. You can take your safety shit and shove it up your ass. You know what I mean? So we had this big ordeal about this, and I talked to several other drivers, and, they're like, yeah, like we wouldn't do that either. You know what I mean? So anyway, I got back to pulling the chutes myself and shutting the car down myself and all that stuff. So sometimes the safety stuff is great, but like sometimes it ain't always going to work. You know what I mean? So you gotta make sure that you're doing your job in there and you're doing what you're supposed to stop yourself at 300 miles an hour, because at the end of the day, it's my ass sitting in there. You know what I mean? It's nobody else, So, but I guess wrecking the car, the safety guy come over and he was like, you did a great job squaring it up. He's like, that's a good job wrecking.
So give me a little bit on your achievements, who you are, like going 300 miles per hour. What's it like to win? You've won. So
Yeah.
what's it like to win?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool, to be honest with you. It's very humbling to win 4 championships, to be in a caliber with 3 other guys only in funny car, to won 4 championships with Forrest, Bernstein, the Snake, and myself, and it's really kind of wild, man. I've had such a successful career. I've won 4 championships, runner up a few times, 52 race wins so far. And just set all kinds of world records and speed records and stuff like that. But, as much as I'd love to sit here and pat myself on the back, man, it's just truly like about my guys, man. Like I have been so blessed to have such a core group of guys, man, around me that just, they love you, man. Like they care about you. They work on the car. They're just genuinely your friend. You know what I mean? Like I love rolling into the racetrack on a Sunday morning, knowing that I have a shot to win the race. There's a lot of guys that show up on Sunday and they hope they win a round. Like I crawl in that car every Sunday and I know that I can win that race, at any moment, and it's just, everything's got to fall into place. But my core group of guys, man, like they're irreplaceable, man. And, it's just, I know we just, lost our crew chief this year to a different team, and he decided to go a different direction. But we promoted from within. Watching these guys like Newt used to it just, I watched him be a bottom end guy, a clutch guy on different deals, and work his way up through and come over and be assistant crew chief. And I'm really excited to have an opportunity this year to win with a group of guys that have come from the bottom all the way to the top and work their way through and earn their shot to do that. I've won championships with 2 different crew chiefs already, and to have these guys that I've been around for the last 15 years, it would be awesome, man. I mean, like their blood, sweat, and tears, man. And, to be able to turn that into some race wins and then into a championship would be amazing, And so, like I said, none of that would have been accomplished without my guys and the work they put in, the early mornings, the late nights, all the after, when I'm out eating a steak and drinking a beer, man, they're putting parts together, and it's just, it doesn't go unnoticed, I mean, we had an opportunity one time, and this is, I guess, bragging a little bit, but I want to instill how important my guys are. And when we went through COVID and we won the championship in 2020, Don was cutting everybody's pay, which, sponsorships were cutting back too, right? So he had to do something to subsidize, so everybody got pay cuts, and I had 2 guys come to me and they're like, look, man, we can't afford to pay our rent, and I'm like, man, like, I don't, like, what do we got to do to help? And, I had a good feeling, like they didn't tell how many races we still had left to win the championship. We just raced as long as we could during COVID, and they cut it off and they're like, okay, that's it. This is the last race, So we were leading the points, and what was really cool is that, there was no countdown. There was no nothing. You just show up and race, and whoever won the most races won the championship. It's like back in the day. And but I had a good shot feeling that like we're going to win the championship. And I was like, I got my guys together. And I was like, look, guys, I know you guys have all been hit in the financial side of things, taking a beating here, to come out here and do what we do. I'm sure you could go find jobs somewhere else, but obviously during COVID, it's tough times and jobs were scarce anyway. And I was like, if we win this championship, I'm gonna give you guys my bonus. You know what I mean? And so I don't know how much it was going to be because of COVID and everything else, but my guys decided to stay on, especially the two that were like, I can't pay my rent. You know what I mean? And so it was really special to see how much they wanted to stay and sacrifice, and then to be able to turn around and win the championship and give them my bonus and give them a little kickback. But that's the story, is because that's how important they are to me. You know what I mean? Like I want to keep these guys around as long as I can. I want to finish my career with my core group of guys that are wrenching on the car before it goes on the racetrack. There's been, as much as we talk about explosions and blow up and fires and all that stuff, there's been so many times that they've caught stuff that hadn't sent me down the racetrack that could have been catastrophic, could have been really bad, and just it didn't happen because they're putting their hands on the parts and they're touching the pieces and they're making sure that they're doing their job, but it's because they care about me, and there's guys that are with me for 4 championships and they're like, look, man, like Chris Stillwell, he's getting older and he's like, but I want to finish my run with you. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, I want to finish it out with you. And it's cool. It's cool.
And you're not driving.
Yeah.
You're not being the guy that you are, the great guy that we all know. What do you do outside of driving?
Yeah, so outside of driving, man, I love farming. We got a pile of land and a bunch of cattle and a lot of mouths to feed, and it's something I enjoy doing. I'll do it till the day I'm not physically able to do it. The race stuff will have its day and its time in the sun, and it'll be over with, and then you move on to a different chapter in your life. And I never thought nothing was ever, nothing was possible other than racing until COVID hit, and then we didn't race as much, and I was like, oh, there's more stuff to life, you know what I mean, than racing. And so it opened up my eyes a lot back in 2020 of like, there's going to be other things. Like, racing's not going to define me as Matt Hagan. I mean, there's going to be other things in my life that come up and we do, and we grow and we do different things, and no different than my CBD company. I started that because I lost my brother to opioids, and it's something I felt like we could help people, with not having addictive, like opioids are so addictive, man. Oxycontin. I watched it kill my brother in 3 years, and it was doctor induced as well. I mean, he had a script from a doctor. He had scoliosis. They put 9 pounds of titanium in his back, got on oxys. And then the doctor was just giving him too much and OD'd, man. Like, we went to sleep. What happened was basically he was laying around the house all the time taking pain pills, and, laying around, you end up with pneumonia in your lungs. And then the pneumonia on top of the oxys, went to bed, drowned himself and and never woke up. The doctor ended up, it happened to 2 other people. She pulled 6 years in prison, but it opened up my eyes of like, hey, how can we help people without putting, such a addictive substance in front of them? And is CBD cure all be all? No, man. But like, I get emails every day and every week of, hey, this helped me with my rheumatoid arthritis. This helps me with my chemo treatment, restless leg syndrome, arthritis, all that kind of stuff. So it gives you a warm and fuzzy knowing that, losing him, it was something that I could do in a positive manner to help other people, So I think that's the other side of racing, you know what I mean? That's the beef company. That's where we're supplying a good product for people to eat, that they know what they're getting, and they know that, it's start to finish on the farm. It's no hormones, no antibiotics, and people care about that stuff. No different than the pain management side of things. They care about what they're putting in their body. And, so that's just little things here and there. And I know when I'm done racing, the opportunities are going to, open up to have more time to do other things. But that's just what I'm doing while I'm racing right now, with the beef company, the farming, and the CBD company. And it's just really, as much as I'd like to sit here and say it's all about making money, I ain't getting rich. I ain't got my own plane. That's for sure. You know what I mean? So, it's about helping people, man, and finding a way to do that and give back a little bit. I've been so blessed, man, like beyond my means, so it's just like you try to give that back in some way, shape, or form, but still pay your bills while you're doing it, right? Like, that stuff doesn't stop either, but it's, I can't imagine being this blessed and not helping people. Yeah. So the name of the company is True Harvest Farms, and it's, the CBD company right there. Everything's online. The beef company's online. We used to have some brick and mortars, but in today's world, it's tough to do, man. It takes a lot of overhead and stuff. So online, you find everything online between if you want to go get some hamburgers, some great steaks, that's, Hagan Cattle Company. It's HaganCattleCo.com or whatever. And I don't know. Look, you Google it, it'll pop up. But it's it's one of those things where it's all online. Check that stuff out. And then my handle on Instagram is Matt Hagan _FC. I'm usually the only one on Instagram, Facebook, and all that other stuff. I hate to say it, but I don't do it. But it's one of those deals where I look at it, but you know what I mean. It's just kind of I can only keep up with so much stuff. But that's for sure me on Instagram. So hit me up and ask all the questions you want. We love to be able to hook you guys up with some beef or some CBD or just talk some farm. I talk more farming at the ropes than I do drag racing.
Is give the people one word of advice that they can take away from life to better their situation or help them close a business deal or to get them to the next level on whatever they're trying to do. Just
Yeah.
one piece of advice.
So one piece of advice I would give people that I think that most people don't work on or don't realize or don't feel like you have to train is your mental toughness, right? Like there's a great book called Mind Gym by Gary Mack. I think by Gary Mack is his last name, and he's a sports psychologist. He worked with hundreds of athletes, with golfers to tennis players to punters to hitters to pitchers. And it's one of those things where I think people, they get up every day and they're like, I'm going to the gym, I'm going to eat right, I'm going to be healthy, but they don't ever work on their mental game, right? Like working on your mental game every day is so important. And it applies to racing, it applies to sports, it applies to life, it applies to business. Being stronger mentally, with everything you do, no different than you jump in a cold plunge, right? Nobody wants to do that, but it makes you more mentally tough, and maybe there's some health benefits, but it's not. But at the end of the day, you got in that thing and you didn't want to do it, and you did something that made you uncomfortable, and you grow from that, right? No different than being on a high ropes course. Like if you're afraid of heights, then you get up on a telephone pole and you walk across a cable, and it freaks you out, but you're growing from that. So the only thing to be able to grow is you have to be uncomfortable. So I say that old saying, if you're comfortable, you're not growing, and I really believe in that.
Thank you for your time, Matt.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.